Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Fronteras, a changing America. Well, with the presidential and vice presidential debates ahead, the race to November 6th is in full swing. And we found out here in Doña County, registrations are down this year compared to 4 years ago, but that's not necessarily a sign that voters will turn out slower in November.
I vote.
I'm voting.
I vote.
Have you registered to vote yet?
The message
Hi, have you registered to vote?
is straightforward.
Voting is the best decision you can make.
It's crunch time for those getting the word out to vote. On New Mexico State's campus, a group called PERG hands out forms for college students to register. So
We're putting in as much effort every day, but we're definitely going to ramp it up as more people hear about the deadline.
Volunteers take the cards from campus straight to the county clerk's office.
We're not allowed to keep them for 48 hours, and we want to make sure that everybody's information is safe so they get their card and are able to vote.
The Doña Ana County Clerk, Lynn Ellens, is there. He says the rate of voters is down this year from 4 years ago, but the number of registered voters is still high.
On the books, we have about 107,000 registered voters realistically, because we haven't been able to purge in several years. We have about 95,000 registered voters in Doña County. We had to start the process all over again this year, and it takes 4 years of non-voting to get purged.
Everyone in the county who voted in 2004 is still on record and will be until 2016. This year's pattern may indicate who will take New Mexico's 5 electoral votes.
I think the Obama campaign is not pushing registrations as hard as it did because this is considered not to be a battleground state this year, and it was 4 years ago. So they had a real push to get people registered.
Will the drop in registration rates mean a low November turnout? Ellens looks at the bigger picture.
Not necessarily, because since 4 years ago, we have more registered voters than we then had.
And the voting process is easier this year.
It used to be if you didn't vote in the precinct in which you were registered, you got a provisional ballot. That's not going to happen anymore. You will get a ballot that's printed out that matches the precinct in which you live and the candidates for whom you're entitled to vote.
Why not vote? I mean, give me one good reason. You can't!
The deadline to register to vote in Doña County is October 9th. Well, with us today is Christy French and Russell Allen. Christy is with the Democratic Party and Russell's with the Republican Party. They're both the chairs of their parties here in Doña County. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, so from listening to the story just there, with turnout in this election, it really appears that, at least in the polls, that if people turn out as they're going to, that President Obama seems to have a lead in this county, at least. Christy, how does that change your strategy? Do you feel like this is a time to relax, or are you still pushing?
No, I would say it's never a time to relax. Despite what the polls may say, I think that the best strategy for any candidate, including President Obama, is to run like they are right on your heels. And I think that the Obama campaign is doing exactly that, and every other candidate is running likewise.
Okay, and then, we never know what's going to happen when we actually get to the polls. Russell, what are you guys doing in the next month and a half or so with the party in town?
Well, we're really working to get our base out to vote. We know 4 years ago that there was lackluster interest in McCain, and so a lot of Republicans stayed home. We believe that because of the last 4 years of what we've experienced and how we have not advanced as far as we probably should have, I think that we have a very good, our base is a little more energetic, and I think we'll see a lot more of our base show up this time.
Mm-hmm. And so throughout all this process, I'd like to ask each of you, Russell, if you want to answer first, what's been the most surprising thing to you about the national race for president this year?
Probably the most surprising thing is the lack of interest that it seems the voters have in what's really happening with the economy and how people are not recovering. The recovery basically has not happened. And the potential is dramatic that's there. There's lots of money sitting on the sides, wondering what's going to happen with this election, and the lack of interest, or maybe being scared of investing in the future when you just don't know where your tax rates are going to be. We don't know where the Obamacare is going to be. They're still writing the regulations. And we know that there's going to be thousands and thousands of pages of regulations. It took them 18 pages to define a full-time employee. So as a business is basically waiting to figure out what's going to happen. We have to forecast where our revenues are going to be, and if you're in business to try to make a profit. And right now there's no certain. We have no idea what's going to be happening.
Christy, what surprised you the most?
I think what surprised me the most is probably voter apathy at this point. I'm surprised that people aren't more fired up. I think that the current administration has done a lot of great things. They pulled us out of what could have been a depression. Sure, the economy has not rebounded as well as we had hoped, but the administration has gotten us the Affordable Health Care Act that has made sure that, at least right now, children with pre-existing conditions are still covered. We make sure that people by 2014, adults rather, will be able to get coverage when there was not coverage because they had pre-existing conditions. I think that I'm concerned that people are not more engaged. I think that there's a lack. I know that when we talk to people and we say, are you registered to vote? A lot of people say, no, I don't care. I'm not interested in politics. And I think that it is paramount at least for my party, it is paramount that we tell them why it is important to vote. In the words of the great Tip O'Neill, all politics is local. And if you can bring it back to them and show them why it is important to vote and why it is important for them personally and what it personally does for them, I think it makes a difference. But it is very difficult. It reminds me of the old joke about the professor who says, what's most responsible for the downfall of humanity, apathy or ignorance? And the student writes back, I don't know and I don't care. So, we have to overcome that, and I do find it surprising because I do think that this is a very pivotal election and we need to absolutely get out there and have our voice heard.
Mm-hmm. Well, President Obama caused a lot more excitement in 2008, certainly, than he has this year. Is that a big problem for actually getting people to register to vote and to go out to vote on voting day? And why such a change? And then why do people still support him after 4 years?
Well, I think that there was a great deal of excitement because he was somebody who was bringing a new voice to politics. He was a new and fresh and exciting. And after 4 years, people get, apathetic. I think he's done a great job, and I think that he will continue to do a great job. It's always hard to get people fired up once they've cast that election. We elected the first black president, and then they kind of go back and forget about it. I think that the main thing that we have to do is to remind people of what he did as a president, what he can continue to do, and to remind them of the fact that prior to his administration, we had 8 years of putting us into the hole that we've gotten ourselves into, and it's going to take a while for us to dig ourselves out.
Mm-hmm. And Russell, this year with Mitt Romney, I think that he may be, a lot of people are saying not so much that they support Romney and they really want him, it's anything but Obama, that there's that side of the coin. Do you think that has caused some apathy, that people
Yeah, well, there is definitely some of that. Going back to what 4 years ago with Obama, he was fresh. He is a very good public speaker. His inflections are very good. He's still was from the outside. Clearly, he'd only been in the Senate for a couple of years, and people didn't really know what was coming forth. And I believe that America, we're very optimistic, and we want to advance. Now, clear here, 4 years later, we know what we've had. There is a record there, and like I said, the economy hasn't come around. Now, Romney, on the other hand, is not as energetic. He doesn't get people all excited like President Obama did, but he's got the background and the solutions and the resume that I believe, and the people on my side believe, that can get us where we need to be. Because clearly we've been kind of floundering around for probably 3 years, trying to figure out where our feet are. The mud, we can't be stuck in the mud anymore. And the solutions that the Romney-Ryan ticket are out there to put forth will, I believe, get us going from the debt that's being given to us, almost $1.5 trillion a year that have been happening since President Obama has taken office, and the government's clearly out of control in spending. I know it can be turned back. There's a lot of bad things out there. There's a lot of good things, and I think there'll be good judgment based on under a President Romney that will be able to identify what's good and what's bad, and let's focus on what's good. And let's get rid of what's bad, and let's keep moving down the road.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to talk about the debates coming up for just a moment. If we have the video, I'd like to show some clips of past debates and past moments where before and after the debates, the polls changed numbers. You can see one candidate did better than the other after some of these moments.
Governor, there you go again.
There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and there never will be under a Ford administration.
I'm sorry, could I just follow? Did I understand you to say, sir?
Governor, if Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer?
No, I don't, Bernard, and I think you know that I've opposed the death penalty during all of my life. I don't see any evidence that it's a deterrent.
And of course, that last clip was of Dukakis, and he was under a lot of fire for having such a dispassionate response to the question. This debate, I think, probably more for Romney than anyone, it's his chance to come back. Do you think that he'll do that during this?
Of course, I hope so. Clearly, I think everybody knows about the past debate debacles from both sides over the years, and of course that's something that will be very high on both sides' list to avoid those kind of situations to get themselves into. I'm not sure that Romney has to hit it out of the park. I think he needs to be very articulate on what his plan is. I believe I know what the plan is. The question is whether or not he'll be able to explain it in a way that those that are trying to decide if they like what's going on or if they want something better will understand.
And Christy, what do you think are some of Obama's strengths as we go into the debates?
Well, clearly he's a brilliant speaker. I think that he is amazing when he speaks. I think he speaks from the heart. I think that he explains himself well. I think that what he needs to do is to explain his plans for the future, to give the voters some concrete evidence as to what he wants to do, as to where he sees it going. And I think that we also want to see, so far we have not gotten concrete numbers from Governor Romney. We have not heard him give us concrete answers, and I think so people will be looking to see if both gentlemen give us the answers that we're looking for.
Turning a little bit now to some of the state issues and state races, we have a Republican governor. and a fairly popular governor. Susana Martinez has been a popular governor since she's been in office. Do either of you see a big change coming ahead for our Senate and House? Russell, I'll start with you.
Well, clearly I hope that's the case. The House has been under control of the Democrats for 59 years. The Senate's been in control for 30 years. And in that time frame, we've watched our surrounding states flourish while we've lagged behind. We can have just about any governor out there. It doesn't matter because the governor is only allowed to sign what is given to them. The leadership within the House and the Senate dictate and control all of the agenda, all the bills, what committees they go to. And under that control, we have not seen the things that New Mexico deserves to have. Down in New Mexico, we have the same kind of workforce that works in El Paso. Yet, when you drive to El Paso, at the state line, their side of the state line is flourishing, and on the New Mexico side, it's not. There's nothing there. And I believe clearly that has to do with our tax reform. We need tax reform, the regulations that are involved with, the education that is a situation that we're not educating the way we could and the way we should. We're doing a disservice to our children. The current leadership seems to be fine with the way it's been, and we've got to make some changes here in the state if we're going to get on even close to level par with our neighbors.
Well, I thought the question was about our Senate and congressional races. I think that Martin Heinrich is an excellent candidate, and he is doing well in polling against Heather Wilson. I think that he will absolutely be an asset to New Mexico. I believe that Evelyn Earhart has a tough road against an incumbent, but she is a grassroots candidate, and I do believe that she has the right mindset and the right issues. She's also an outsider running against someone who's been ingrained in Washington for years. So I think that she would bring a fresh perspective. As far as the state goes, yeah, we have to do something more about bringing jobs into southern New Mexico, and we also have to make sure that they're jobs that keep people like our students here at NMSU, once they graduate, that they don't leave southern New Mexico, that they stay here. I agree that there needs to be some tax reform done. I do not agree that we necessarily strip all regulations from business. I think you need to look at regulation and see what regulation is doing the right things and what regulation is maybe not doing what it was originally set out to do. There's always people that game the system, and I think you need to not necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater, but take a look at what regulation is protecting the employees and protecting the consumer, and what regulations might be tweaked to make it a better business environment.
What are some of those regulations you'd like to see scaled back, and what are some you'd like to see pushed forward?
I would have to look more closely at the different regulations, and quite frankly, to be quite honest with you, I have not. I just hear the mantra from the Republicans is always, we have to, get rid of the regulations. That's what's keeping business from coming here, and I don't believe that that's necessarily true. I believe that you have to have a cogent look at the regulations, and like I said, some regulations, maybe they were put in place and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and those should be changed, and the legislature should take a look at that. But if there's regulations that are in place that are doing what they should do, which is to protect the consumer, protect employees, then I think they should be kept in place. But just a across the board, slashing of regulations and also a slashing of taxes. We need a tax base to keep going. It cannot just be done on cuts.
Mm-hmm. And Russell, do you think there are any regulations that are hurting businesses?
Clearly that's a little bit of a misrepresentation of what the Republicans want. We're not looking at slashing taxes straight down the board. We're not looking at slashing regulations by, obviously, there are regulations that have to be there. Government's responsibility is to protect us. That is its purpose. And there are several regulations out there. I'm sure there's lots of regulations based on our biggest taxpayer in the state of New Mexico, which is the oil and gas industry. that is causing things to go to other states and causing employees not to be able to business to hire people. But this notion that Republicans don't want to tax anybody and they want to hurt everybody is foolish, and it's wrong, and it's not true. And but as long as there is leadership in Santa Fe that's not willing to look at these regulations and these taxes, which they haven't for decades, then we're going to keep keeping the same thing that we've always had.
What's really wrong with the economy? I'd just like to ask both of you that question of what you think and what you think politics has to do with it. Just what's wrong with the economy, Christy?
Well, the economy is stagnant. It's not growing. We are growing out of what was a serious recession. The banking industry, the mortgage problems. If I had all the answers, I would be running for a spot on the legislature. I think that we have to trust that our leaders, and I trust that President Obama has the big picture, but it is going to take some time. And I think that people were overly optimistic, especially when he got in office, that he could flip a switch and change all of that. We had 8 years, we had 2 wars that were unpaid. We had, again, the banking crisis, we had the mortgage lending crisis, we've had foreclosures. It is a problem that cannot be solved overnight. I think that there is argument among economists on how best to get the economy going forward. But clearly we have to work at job creation. We can't send jobs overseas anymore. We have to do things that keep our jobs here. And in New Mexico, we have to start looking at how we get high-paying jobs, not just minimum wage jobs, but high-paying jobs, because we're losing our youth to other states. And I think that that's a problem. And I think we need to look at things like renewable energy. Yes, right now renewable energy is costly. But if we don't start now trying to figure out how to do something with our renewable energy, with solar and with wind, we're going to be that much further behind the 8 ball when those answers are evident in how we can do it for much lower cost. I think that we definitely need to attract as much business as we can. I actually agree with some of the people who are talking about the spaceport and the liability. We invested in the spaceport, our taxpayers are paying for that spaceport, and we need to make sure that that spaceport is a viable endeavor.
Okay. Do you think that Romney is the man to fix some of the economic problems?
Oh, clearly I do. The government is clearly overstepping its bounds in many areas. It's overstepping into the state's arena where it should not be, and it's just grown too large. It needs to be cut back. Romney did that for a living. You find businesses, you cut off the waste, you make them profitable, and they grow. And that's something that is possible with the government as well. This notion that Romney was a slasher and he put people out of work and do all those kind of things through the Bain situation is just ridiculous. He infused capital into many companies to try to bring them around, and many of them they did. Some do fail. We brought up renewable energies. Clearly, all of the above is something that needs to be done. But there's 2 major flaws with renewable energies. Is 1, the sun doesn't shine 24 hours a day, and 2, the wind doesn't blow 24 hours a day. And the biggest flaw to it is the fact that you have to get that energy into the grid, and that grid must be powered at all times. And if it's not powered at all times, then it doesn't work anywhere. It's called a closed circuit. And so there's a lot of things that out there with the renewable energies that's years and years and years away. Now, of course, there needs to be investment in that, and the investment in the private sector is the one that will make that happen, because the drive to show a profit is what's made this country what it is. And the government getting involved into those kind of things, the government's not worrying about profit. They don't care about profit. They care about buying votes. And that's a real problem. The private sector is not the enemy. It is the solution. And I believe it is the solution to the renewable energies as well.
Could I just say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that, do you have an iPhone?
I do.
I would like to point out something that the government invests billions of dollars in research and development that end up helping private businesses. Siri on your iPhone. When you talk to Siri and you ask Siri, where's the nearest Starbucks? Siri came from an investment by the government at Stanford University. That's how they got Siri. And Siri was then offered free to companies, to private sector companies, for them to be able to use that. Steve Jobs took advantage of that, and poof, we have the iPhone 4S and the iPhone 5 now. So to simply say that it's only private sector that is going to turn things around, I think that there is a partnership between government and the private sector, and I think that investing in things like research and development will eventually pay off for the private sector.
That's true.
With just about 30 seconds left in our show, and go ahead and respond to
well,
what she said.
I mean, we can say the same thing about Velcro that came from the Space Center. The difference is the government's investing and researching in those kind of things, and then business is the one that applies those things and then builds its businesses and employs the people who ultimately are the taxpayers, who are the ones that are in charge and give all the revenue to the government. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can watch the debates right here on KRWG. They air at 7 p.m. You can check krwg.org for a full schedule. Christy French and Russell Allen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.